Fantastic Four is a beloved comic book created by editor Stan Lee and the amazing Jack Kirby, who would work together to create one of the most successful series of comic books for Marvel, which led to two successful animated TV shows in the late 60s and the late 70s. Fantastic Four was a groundbreaking comic book series whose success inspired Marvel to create more superhero team-up comics, including the X-Men and the Avengers, and introduced us to many beloved characters in the Marvel Universe. Comic book publisher Martin Goodman inspired Stan Lee and Jack Kirby to create the Fantastic Four after he mentioned to them that the comic book series Justice League of America, published by National Comics, was selling extremely well. Stan Lee was at this time ready to leave Marvel, but decided to take the risk and create the Fantastic Four alongside Jack Kirby.
I really wanted to quit and try something else. And I remember Joan said to me, "You know, Stan, if you want to quit, before you do, why don't you do one book the way you would like to do it? The worst that happens is Martin will fire you, and so what? You want to quit anyway." So coincidentally, at that time, he had found out that our competitor, DC Comics, which called itself National Comics in those days, they had done a book called the Justice League of America, a group of superheroes, and it was selling very well. And he said to me, "Stan, why don't you do a book about a group of superheroes?" So I figured this is my chance to do it my way. I came up with something I called the Fantastic Four, about four superheroes. But instead of making them heroes who wore costumes, I figured I'm not going to give them costumes. Make them real characters living in the real world.
After the success and quick popularity of the first issue, which debuted in November of 1961, Marvel quickly earned the slogan as the world's greatest comic magazine. The Fantastic Four are a team of adventurers consisting of Reed Richards, Reed's fiancée, Sue Storm, her brother, Johnny Storm, and their friend, Ben Grimm, who while travelling in space in their rocket ship, the Marvel One, pass through a cosmic radiation storm. The rocket crash lands, and they emerge from the wreckage, discovering that their bodies have mutated and they have received remarkable new abilities and superpowers. Reed becomes Mr. Fantastic and has the ability to stretch his body and limbs, while Sue becomes the Invisible Girl and has the remarkable ability to bend light around her body and become invisible. Johnny becomes the Human Torch and is able to fly with his whole body being engulfed in flames, an ability which he can control. And Ben Grimm becomes the Thing, an orange muscular rock-like creature who has amazing strength and durability. All four decide to use their powers and abilities for good, going on various exciting new adventures to explore new frontiers and defend Earth from alien invaders and supervillains like Doctor Doom. The Fantastic Four originally would operate their base in Central City, California, but moved their headquarters to the Baxter Building in New York City, establishing themselves as mainstream superheroes.
Instead of having them live in a fictional place like Metropolis or Gotham City, I plunked them right down in New York City. And because I knew New York City, I could write about New York City, and I figured, why not let them live in a real place? Try to keep everything as realistic as possible, even though it was just a superhero comic. Well, the book did wonderfully. It sold great. And I got a lot of fan mail, and we had almost never gotten fan mail before. And all the letters said essentially the same thing. "We love the book. It's the greatest. We'll keep buying it forever. You're the greatest writer. Jack is the greatest artist. It's terrific. But if you don't give them costumes, we'll never buy another issue." I will never understand why, but for some reason, people who like superhero stories like their superheroes to wear costumes. Okay, I'm not going to go against that.
Well, the Fantastic Four was another teen adventure, and it gave me a chance to draw teenagers once more. And of course, Reed Richards was their mentor, and The characters and I had a wonderful time. I put them through all kinds of adventures. They were spectacular characters. Reed Richards could stretch himself for a mile. The characters themselves would create the situations. It was a kind of a series that became a classic in the field.
New and old characters would often appear in each issue. For example, in May of 1962, in the number 4 issue, they would be introduced to the golden age of comics character, Namor the Submariner, who was featured in Marvel's earliest issues, published by Timely Comics, during the late 1930s and the 1940s. Namor the Submariner was an aquatic anti-hero reintroduced into the Fantastic Four. In this issue, Johnny Storm would leave the group after a falling out with his teammates. After fighting one of the first villains featured, Miracle Man, he encounters World War II hero, the Submariner, who has amnesia. Johnny returns the Submariner back into the sea to restore his memory. His plan works, and his memory is restored. After finding Atlantis in ruins, Submariner declares war on mankind. Johnny rejoins the Fantastic Four, but Namor the Submariner becomes the team's rival for a short while. Issue 5 introduced the team's most frequent enemy, Dr. Doom, who was Reed's former college rival, Victor Von Doom. Dr. Doom was always after world domination, forcing the Fantastic Four to face him time and time again. In issue 16, the cover title dropped its "The" and became simply Fantastic Four. In this issue, Fantastic Four team up with Ant-Man to battle Dr. Doom in Subatomica, a 5-planet star system located within the Microverse. This issue was the 3rd appearance of Dr. Doom. The Fantastic Four would battle many foes, including the Puppet Master, the Impossible Man, the Hulk, the Mad Thinker, the Molecule Man, and the Mole Man. There is a number of team-ups in these issues, including a team-up with Nick Fury to defeat the Hate-Monger. During this time, the Invisible Girl would discover her force field powers. Spider-Man would feature in one issue, wanting to join the team, but he is rejected. Other team-ups included the Avengers, who in one issue helped them to battle the Hulk. In another issue, X-Men help Fantastic Four battle the evil Puppet Master and the Mad Thinker. In issue 36 of Fantastic Four, we see Human Torch's enemies, the Wizard, Sandman, the Trapster, and Medusa form an evil mirror counterpart to the Fantastic Four, the Frightful Four, who battle the Fantastic Four on a number of occasions. Reed and Sue would eventually get married. Among the wedding guests attending were the Avengers and most of the world's heroes. In this issue, Dr. Doom used his emotion charger machine to mind control many villains to attack on Reed and Sue's wedding day. But with the aid of the device given to them by the Watcher, Reed would end the threat. A much bigger threat to the team would come in the form of the powerful Galactus, who comes to Earth to consume the energy-rich planet. This would see the introduction of the Silver Surfer, an alien who rebelled against Galactus. In issue 52 of Fantastic Four, the Black Panther makes his first appearance. In one issue of the Fantastic Four, Ben Grimm was transformed back into his human self, losing his powers after a battle with the Hulk. He was briefly replaced by Luke Cage. He returned to the team after Reed constructs an exoskeleton, but he is transformed back into his rock form again during a battle with Galactus. With the success of the Fantastic Four comic book, it was a given to create a Marvel animated television show for the Saturday morning cartoon market. In the fall of 1966, Cy Fisher, a television agent, one day noticed that his son was reading a Fantastic Four comic book. Fisher asked his son if this comic book would make a good cartoon. His son said yes. Fisher got on the phone the next day with Joseph Barbera, the co-founder and head of Hanna-Barbera, and told him his idea to bring the Marvel comic book The Fantastic Four to the TV screen and develop it as a Saturday morning cartoon. Joseph Barbera and Cy Fisher agreed and got in contact with Stan Lee, asking if the rights were available. Luckily enough, they were. A deal was quickly struck between the two companies, and Hanna-Barbera put the show into development and pitched the idea to the ABC. Quickly, ABC scheduled the show for release. In the fall of 1967, the Fantastic Four animated series was produced by Hanna-Barbera Productions. The series would make its debut on ABC on Saturday morning on September the 9th of 1967, and the series would run for just 20 episodes until September the 21st of 1968. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were kept as consultants for the series. Alex Toth would come up with the overall look and design of the show for both the animation and the comics. Toth was well known for working on such animated classics as Space Ghost, The Herculoids, and Super Friends. Hanna-Barbera found it hard to emulate Lee and Kirby's complex plots and storylines from the comics, but their 1967 adaptation of the Fantastic Four was well produced, giving the Marvel Comics team welcome exposure to those who were unfamiliar with their comic book series. The animated series included the voice talents of Gerald Moore as Reed Richards, Joanne Plug as Susan Storm Richards, the legendary Paul Frees as The Thing, and Jack Flounders as the Human Torch. The series featured many of the arch-villains that were featured in the comic book, including Doctor Doom. Hanna-Barbera, along with Alex Toth, would even create all new characters not featured in the comic book, like Gamma Ray, an evil scientist whose headquarters was situated on the Island X. In the animated Fantastic Four series, the Fantasticar is the team's best-known means of transport. The series would also feature them using the U-Car, featured in the Fantastic Four Annual Number 1. In mid-1970, Jack Kirby left Marvel, having drawn up the first 102 issues of Fantastic Four. The successful Fantastic Four series would go into syndication and was followed 10 years later with another Fantastic Four cartoon series titled The New Fantastic Four in 1978. Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Girl, and The Thing would return except for the Human Torch, who was replaced by a new character, the robot Herbie, which stands for Humanoid Experimental Robot, B-Type. The reason why the Human Torch was replaced was mainly due to the 1978 television rights to use the Human Torch being tied up by a proposed live-action television pilot movie in development at Universal Studios that ended up never being produced. This was mainly due to it being far too expensive to produce, due mainly to special effects, which were very limited due to technology, and the character was just not legally available for use in this animated series. The other main reason was also that the Human Torch was trademarked separately from the Fantastic Four and was a Golden Age hero of the same name, who in the early National Comics, pre-Marvel, used the alias Jim Hammond. The new Fantastic Four series would feature the voice talents of Ted Cassidy, who voiced The Thing, and Mole Man, Dick Tuffield, as the narrator of the series. Tuffield was well known as the voice of the robot in Lost in Space. Other voices included Frank Welker as Herbie, with John Stevenson as Dr. Doom, and Magneto, who appeared in Episode 2, titled The Menace of Magneto. In Episode 8, titled The Fantastic Four Meet Dr. Doom, we see Dr. Doom introducing himself to the Fantastic Four. Doom would later appear in the episode The Final Victory of Dr. Doom. During the season, many villains like Mole Man would appear, with Medusa and the Inhumans making an appearance in the episode Medusa and the Inhumans. The new Fantastic Four only lasted for a season, for only 13 episodes, from September the 9th until December the 16th of 1978. Fantastic Four was certainly the comic book that propelled Marvel to new heights, generating a massive fan base that is still going strong today. And with the first two animated shows, it would draw in a new audience not at all familiar with the Fantastic Four. My name's Jonathan. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this video, please remember to subscribe if you haven't already. And if you like what you see on my channel and would like to support me on Patreon, click on the link below.